Every year the Blavatnik School of Government run a Challenges of Government conference, and it's because we want to pick a challenge that governments right across the world are facing and then bring everybody that's got part of a solution to that challenge together: communities, the private sector, governments, academics. And that way we can ensure that the practitioners get to tell us what's really happening in the real world, and the academics get to tell them what's the state of the art in research.
This, of course, is a unique event in that it brings together academics with people from the private sector, public policy environment, NGOs and so forth. And as someone who works predominantly in a university environment, these are rather rare occasions. So this is a wonderful conference to see that in action. Because of dysfunctional governance and management, people are forced to build their own cities themselves.
I do think taking on the big topics that are affecting governments around the world, but convening leaders from incredibly different backgrounds with fantastic perspectives. I think there's just a magic when you bring those people together, when you challenge them with fresh perspectives, and when you set a high bar in terms of the sorts of answers, the sort of outcomes that we're looking for.
This year, in 2014, the theme we chose was Flourishing Cities.
For us in Yemen, it is an issue that we grapple with every day, as we have a growing population, putting a lot of pressure on cities.
We would all like to live in a flourishing city, which I believe is a misnomer because there aren't any yet. But hopefully with some of the ideas that we'll hear about, we can invent them.
Technology, in a way, is facilitating people to influence the decision-making processes of our cities. And I think this is really important.
It's very interesting to hear some of the leading experts on urban development.
I've learned an enormous amount, and yet I thought I knew an enormous amount about cities, and it's really opened my eyes.
Democracy always have to reinvent themselves. We need always to evolve.
I like the fact that the Blavatnik School tries to tackle things in a very practical way. I think this is very important for people who are going to work with government, with public policy.
An example of that is the last session with the mayor of Medellin in Colombia. And someone asked a question about how do you create citizenship and social cohesion? And he answered public spaces, and we all know that that's really important. But then he said the best public space we have in Medellin is the underground, the metro. And that is so unique in Colombia, where rich and poor mix and equality exists, even if only temporarily, on a journey to work.
El espacio público es donde los ciudadanos nos volvemos iguales.
And it was a very powerful demonstration of how transport measures can improve or reduce social inequality, which in turn reduces violence and makes the city a much nicer place for the inhabitants to be in.
It's often been said that great ideas actually come through creative collisions. And I think the magic of an environment like this is just the number of creative collisions.
And people are connecting in the sessions between, following up with the speakers who are staying to be available. I know after the panel that I was on, some really rich discussions occurred.
One of the things that I've learned about my work in cities is the most important thing is peer-to-peer exchange. Cities are complex and they're highly contextual, but if people tell their stories, it's their audience who can work out, is this story relevant to my city or isn't it relevant to my city?
Never before in human history have the challenges that we have to deal with in the world been more at odds with the institutions that we have to solve those problems. And therefore I think rather than just giving up on those old institutions, I do think dialogues like what we have here in Oxford are one of the great meeting places where we can fill those gaps.
Are we going to do it again? Absolutely. This is our 4th Challenges of Government conference, and next year's will be in our glorious new building.